Too many of the current writers subscribe to a radical worldview, and that makes them
Oh God, ask me about my feminist agenda. He's bringing that shirt up. Oh my God. I need to get that shirt. The way people talk about that shirt, who gives a shit?
to write stories that appeal to general audiences. What they write appeals to fellow ideologues that share their worldview.
Okay, yeah, the Snowflake and Safe Space, I don't remember, was it a new version of New Warriors or something like that? I don't remember. But that was cringe. I think that writer was trolling. Some of it, like Trailblazer and stuff, yeah, I think that writer was trolling, because that was cringe stuff. But unfortunately, because they're trolling now, these anti-woke guys always have this ammunition they can throw out there. And it's like, yeah, no, this sucks. We know this sucks. It doesn't mean all the stuff you're talking about sucks, because a lot of it's good. But yeah, this specifically sucks. Yeah, it says New Warriors. It was New Warriors. This Organized Chaos video is brought to you by Gems Art Studio. This video is also brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Hello again. Yes, we are going to journey back into the MCU, and I wish I remember in the chat one of my commenters commented on, if Phase 4 of Marvel is the MCU, wouldn't Phase 1 be the male CU? And it's like, yeah, like it's been like all guys almost exclusively for a while. And yeah, I think it's weird how everybody's blowing up. Oh my God, there's more women in the Marvel universe. Well, good. What's your issue? But I'm gonna go to possibly one of a channel I used to actually like when they first came out. This channel is called Midnight's Edge. It felt like when they first came out, they were kind of like they had some insiders in the movie industry, and like they were like reporting the stories that they were getting, and it was kind of interesting. I remember I really started losing interest when they did like 50 quadzillion Ghostbusters 2016 videos. Because I remember watching the first couple and be like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that happened. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that happened. But then they just kept on going and going. And I was like, guys, I'm done with Ghostbusters 2016. Why are we still doing videos on Ghostbusters 2016? That's done. But yeah, Midnight's Edge. 200,000 subs. And here's the thing. I think these guys actually started after me. When did they start? They started April 2015. So yeah, I was still a pretty young channel then. But yeah, they started after me. Obviously, they blew up bigger than me. Because like a lot of the movie stuff they did was kind of interesting. But now they did ton... Like I haven't really looked this channel since they did 50 billion fucking Ghostbusters 2016 videos. And now they got this... a couple days ago, the MCU problem and the subversion Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And it's in the multiverse. Did they? Okay, whatever. But yeah, so what's gonna be their take on the MCU? Are they gonna criticize it for what it is, this sexism? Or are they gonna like actually play into it? Well, let's look at some of these. They're doing Lord of the Rings. I haven't talked about that, but yeah, fans are blowing up over that, and I'm not a fan of how the dwarves look in the cast photos, but I'll still give it a look. Into the DCU. Oh, that's not a good sign. Oh God, 4 months ago. They did a Ghostbusters 2016 video. Oh my God. They're still doing it. Stop. And 6 months ago. I guess it's Afterlife. Okay, I'll give you a pass on Afterlife. That's a new one. I'll be blunt. This isn't the worst channel I've looked at, but there's definitely some bad signs here. But you know, we're going to check out the DCU problem and Doctor Strange video. Fancy logo, I'll give them that.
This video is sponsored by WinX DVD Ripper.
Cool.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is a highly divisive movie. While there are some points of excellence in it, and many find a lot to...
Well, here's the deal. I don't actually think it's that divisive. It's not a perfect movie by any means, but it's overall pretty good. I think most part it seems like people are largely positive to it. Where it's getting divisive, I find, is mainly with the sexists. Mainly the sexist and the racist and the whole anti-woke, anti-SJW crowd dislikes it. And yeah, I'm really getting to a point where they can go fuck themselves.
...enjoy about it. There are some aspects of it that in my book wildly detracts from the movie as a whole. However, it is not as simple as blaming director Sam Raimi for having pulled another Spider-Man 3, as the aspects that did not work aren't unique to this movie so much as they are indicative of a larger producer and writer issue that affects the current phase of the MCU as a whole. In this editorial, I will begin with establishing how Doctor Strange's issues are a direct continuation of WandaVision's, and how they inadvertently resulted in the total character assassination of Wanda, the Scarlet Witch. For those that may wonder, yes, there will be some mild spoilers. Before we get into that though, I know that many of you, like me, have some pretty substantial physical collections of movies, TV series, and even priceless family recordings from special occasions. And that is good. We always say, preserve your physical media. But we also say that as part of that preservation, you should consider taking digital backups as well. And
oh god, it's a commercial. They do a full thing for WinX. I know, like, WinX came to me and they wanted me to post something, and I think I have something posted for them. But yeah, I think that's kind of cringing that I even did that. I don't even know if I want to do corporate sponsorships anymore. I think I've already kind of established this YouTube channel is not going to be something that really makes me money, but it's going to be something where I talk about things that are important to me and make videos that I enjoy making.
Go back to the beginning of Doctor Strange. To claim your free copy and begin preserving your physical media, click the link in the description. With that, let's go back to the beginning of Doctor Strange's issues. WandaVision was the first of the Disney Plus MCU series and the first installment of Phase 4 to be released. Leading up to its release, there was much hype surrounding it. Rumors that it would feature Mephisto as the villain, and have people transported in from the multiverse, such as Quicksilver from the X-Men universe, had many a fan very excited going in. That excitement wouldn't last though, because as the series progressed, it became clear that it was poorly paced, narratively sloppy with most of the screen time being filler, and worse still, it had no Mephisto, no multiverse, and nothing else cool.
Oh, so the worst thing about WandaVision was the lack of Mephisto and multiverse. Jesus Christ, that's a shallow interpretation. WandaVision was essentially Wanda, like breaking down. That was the point of that series. That was her doing a breakdown. The one writer said it's about grief, and that's what it is about. Saying the worst thing about it is that it doesn't have Mephisto in the multiverse. I remember the writers specifically for that series came out and said, you gotta temper your expectations for this series. You're expecting way too much, because they didn't promise anything big like that. And yeah, they didn't give you anything big like that. It was fan expectations that blew out of the water. But the actual series was very, very good.
In fact, it subverted expectations in the most boring of ways possible. For those that might...
Yeah, how dare it not do Multiverse and Mephisto, even though it never promised to do Multiverse and Mephisto.
...not have seen it. The brief summary is that in the aftermath of Endgame, Wanda is grieving the death of Vision, and to deal with this grief, she creates a fantasy world inspired by vintage sitcoms starring herself, imaginary Vision, and most importantly, her imaginary children, as well as a whole host of other imaginary supporting characters. The problem though is that these imaginary characters, for the most part, are the residents of a random town, enslaved under Wanda's spell. While they may smile because of the spell, they are suffering, prisoners in their own bodies, while Wanda uses them as toys to roleplay her imaginary perfect life. Some of them are even dying as they can't eat or drink unless Wanda ascribed them scenes in which they do that in her town-scale role-playing game. In the end though, after 9 full episodes of a whole lot less shenanigans than you'd think given the screen time, Wanda is informed that while she has been role-playing imaginary mum for her imaginary kids, real people are dying and in misery because of it. In the end, she reluctantly agrees to end her roleplay and let the town residents she
Reluctantly? Yeah, she figured out what she was doing because, like, she was having a mental break. That's what that was about. She wasn't doing this, like, on purpose, but she just had, like, a mental break and she did this. Reluctantly. Yeah, no, she let them go once she realized what was up. And yeah, the townspeople, like, don't try to say, oh yeah, everything was fine. The townspeople were fucking pissed.
enslaved go about their business. However, Wanda is dismayed to learn that the townspeople aren't grateful for her graciously returning their freedom. No, those ingrates are instead pissed that she enslaved them for days or weeks in the first place. Wanda even has to be comforted and told that the townspeople will never understand what she gave up for them. And the whole sequence is framed in such a way that we, the audience, are meant to feel very sorry for her. We don't have to agree with her actions. But the writers and producers want us, the audience, to empathize with her pain of accepting that her imaginary kids were but figments of her imagination. The writers and producers no doubt thought that their work was moving and profound.
Well, it's about somebody having a mental breakdown. I feel like you're putting a lot more into us. What was that thing you said?
To end her...
Oh yeah, how everybody, like, is supposed to feel grateful. I never got the sense people were supposed to feel grateful. I got the sense that Wanda was just kind of fucking out of it. And then Agatha was an actual real threat. Agatha was there, and she was a real threat. And, you know, people won't understand how he defeated Agatha. Yeah, for sure. But, like, Wanda was having a mental break. Like, saying Wanda is, like, the big hero in WandaVision is kind of a fucking stretch. She does wind up, like, saving them from Agatha in the end. But, yeah, no.
But figments of her imagination. The writers and producers no doubt thought that their work was moving and profound. It wasn't. If they ever thought it was, which they probably did, that would be one of the indications that something has gone very, very wrong behind the scenes. Before we get into what went wrong, let's contrast that to when everything went right. Ever since its launch with Iron Man back in 2008, the MCU had gone from strength to strength. While other Hollywood producers never figured it out, the secret behind Marvel's success was pretty evident to the fans of the comics. What the MCU did was treat the movies like a TV series in which each episode is self-contained, yet furthered the larger narrative which only gradually unfolded over time. As for which narratives to feature, both in each movie as well as across movies, they selected bits and pieces from the best runs of the comics. And just so we're clear, by best runs, I mean the comic book runs which were popular with the fans, popular with reviewers, and oftentimes which increased sales and brought new readers to the titles. The point I'm making is that everything that worked in the MCU on film had already been tried and found to be successful in the pages of Marvel Comics. This is true even for the movies based on characters most people had never heard about, like the Guardians of the Galaxy. No, not all that many read Guardians of the Galaxy compared to, say, Batman or Spider-Man, but those who did read them loved them. Before the movie
Yeah, but that movie did take some liberties with those guys too. Let's get
was
real.
even conceived of, the Guardians of the Galaxy were already a commercially successful commodity in the pages of the comics. All the movie had to do was the same as all the other movies already had done. That is, show the general movie-going audience why comic book readers loved these quirky characters in the first place. And they had the writers and directors with the appropriate sensibilities to do just that. But towards the end of the Infinity Saga, sometime during Phase 3, something happened behind the scenes. The popular and commercially successful comic book runs are all in the past now. For the past decade, there have been Marvel comic book runs which have been praised by critics for their social messaging, but none which were also popular.
I like it. He says praised by critics for their social messaging. How about just praised by critics? Why can't you just say that? Why you gotta put the social messaging thing on there? You know, if a critic is saying something is good just for its social messaging, that's not a good critic. I would assume these critics probably actually like it. I like how he puts that tag on there. Praised for its social messaging. Dude, it was probably just praise. Because I know there's plenty of things that have good social messaging that are just not good. I mean, Captain Marvel. I am not a huge fan of Captain Marvel. I find myself defending it a lot on here because I think people go over the top on it. Because I think it's not a great movie. I think it went for big ideas and didn't really hit them. But it's okay. And I think people go over the top about like it's the worst comic book movie ever. And it's not by a fucking mile. It's like low-grade MCU, which is still pretty good. But yeah.
With the comic book readers. On the contrary, as more and more activists put their stamps on the comic books in the last 5 years
Oh God, I don't like the way this is going.
in particular, fewer and fewer readers chose to actually pick them up, and fewer still actually liked them. To be clear, there are still both good individual writers.
Fewer readers are reading all comic books. All the sales for comic books are going down the crapper. Comic books have essentially just become a vehicle to see what new stories or new characters can they experiment with and which ones will take off. And if those ones take off, they'll experiment with them in the movies. Comic books have largely, Marvel Comics, DC is kind of different, but Marvel is largely just experimenting. Marvel Comics are experimenting to see what they might want to try in the movies. And something takes off, they'll try it in the movies or Disney Plus series. That's all it is. The actual sales of the comic books probably don't even support the comic books, but they'll keep them going simply because it's kind of an institution, and fuck it, the movies more than make up the money.
As well as individual titles that are good left in Marvel Comics. But too many of the current writers subscribe to a radical worldview, and that makes them
Oh God, ask me about my feminist agenda. He's bringing that shirt up. Oh my God. I need to get that shirt. The way people talk about that shirt, who gives a shit?
To write stories that appeal to general audiences. What they write appeals to fellow ideologues that share their worldview.
Okay, yeah, the Snowflake and Safe Space, I don't remember, was it a new version of New Warriors or something like that? I don't remember. But that was cringe. I think that writer was trolling. Some of it, like Trailblazer and stuff, yeah, I think that writer was trolling, because that was cringe stuff. But unfortunately, because they're trolling now, these anti-woke guys always have this ammunition they can throw out there. And it's like, yeah, no, this sucks. We know this sucks. It doesn't mean all the stuff you're talking about sucks, because a lot of it's good. But yeah, this specifically sucks. Yeah, it says New Warriors. It was New Warriors.
And because of this, comic book sales from both Marvel and DC, once the titans of comics, have today plummeted to levels where both are pretty irrelevant.
They were plummeting before then. New York Times sales are plummeting. You think New York Times has trouble moving issues? How do you think if New York Times has trouble moving issues, how do you think Nightwing number 138 will sell? Get a grip.
Instead, manga is the driving force behind the comic book market these days. Going back to the movie side of things, starting in earnest from Phase 4, Marvel abandoned their policy of adapting properties and storylines that already had commercial success in the pages of the...
Yes, they've already done a lot of the most famous commercial successful ones. They've already done a lot of it. So now they're going for the more critically acclaimed stuff. They've done some experiments in the ones that are critically acclaimed. Like, notice they aren't doing a Safe Space and Snowflake movie. Notice they aren't doing that. They're doing the stuff that gets critical acclaim now. Because the commercial acclaim's not going to be there. No matter how well they write a comic book, the commercial acclaim will not be there. The commercial acclaim will not be there. The critical acclaim will be there, and that's what they have to use to judge now. Because as long as they make the movie well, it it'll make money. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is making bank. Spider-Man No Way Home is making bank. Say what you will about Eternals or Shang-Chi, they are actually doing a lot better than most of the solo movies than that these characters usually start out with. Probably their least successful movie to date is still The Incredible Hulk, which would be for these guys coming from the heyday of the MCU.
The comics. In fact, they skipped over decades worth of commercially successful fan.
Yeah, they are leading up to Secret Wars though, so let's not pretend like they're just ignoring all that and jumping ahead. They're just not doing it 100% accurately. They've never followed the comic books accurately. And I like how this is a Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness video, and we're over halfway through, and he barely has touched on it.
Favorite stories, and jumped straight to the current era, which caused
God, I feel like I'm watching fucking Comicsgate shit again.
Long-time readers to flee in the first place, further compounding the issue.
So many longtime readers were already leaving. When they're already leaving, you inspire a sense of fuck it, and they just start like experimenting and seeing what sticks, and some of the stuff sticks, and that's what they're moving forward with.
The writers and producers spearheading the current face of the MCU share the same worldview as the very writers that bled out Marvel Comics. That's why we see so many OG heroes being replaced by female counterparts across the board.
Well, you also realize they aren't going to want to keep on paying Robert Downey Jr. the huge bank they've been paying him for the past few movies, and that actors won't want to keep on playing these characters for 50 fucking years. So they have to figure out variations. And hey, you know what? The original Avengers team had 5 white guys and 1 white woman. Maybe they could do a little bit better on the variations of that. I mean, I remember even back in 2012 when the first Avengers came out, remember thinking, I'm kind of surprised they don't have a black person in there. Like, it feels kind of weird to have so many white guys on this team. And I remember when they were talking about it coming out, I was like, oh, are they going to, like, put Nick Fury as more of a center focus in the movie, in the team? And he wasn't a part of the team, but they do give him a big role in the movie, and that's why, it's like, okay. But yeah, it's kind of cringe to have so much focused on white guys. And let's go ahead and take a tally here. How many MCU movies are there? Aren't there like 26 now? Let's go ahead and dig this up. MCU movies. We're going to take a tally right here, because I want to end this discussion. Although I know I'm just going to get back to it. Okay. Let's see a list. All right. Iron Man. So that's 1. Incredible Hulk. Iron Man 2. Thor. Captain America. Avengers. Iron Man 3. Thor 2. Captain America 2. Guardians of the Galaxy. Avengers 2. Ant-Man. Captain America 3, Doctor Strange, Guardians 2, Spider-Man, Thor 3, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War. So Infinity War was the 19th movie. Alright, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Endgame, Far From Home, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, No Way Home, Doctor Strange 2. So, 28 movies. 28 movies in the MCU. Now, how many star white guys? Let's look at this. Okay. Iron Man, white guy. Incredible Hulk, white guy. Iron Man 2, white guy. Thor, white guy. Captain America, white guy. Marvel's Avengers. I won't even count that. I'll call it that as a loss because one of the 6 is a woman. Iron Man 3, white guy. Thor 2, white guy. Captain America 2, white guy. Guardians of the Galaxy, starring Chris Pratt, white guy. And then I said I'll go ahead and pass on Avengers, so Avengers 2. Ant-Man, white guy. Captain America 3, white guy. 2 white guys. Doctor Strange, white guy. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Chris Pratt again, white guy. Spider-Man, white guy. Thor 3, white guy. Black Panther, the first one not starring a white guy. The first movie in the entire MCU not starring a white guy. I mean, I could throw in Avengers movies because I'm 99% sure Robert Downey Jr. gets lead credit on all those movies. But I'm not. So let's see. Black Panther. So Avengers, I said I'm going to let that one pass. Captain Marvel. Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's a so I'll let that one pass. Captain Marvel. Yeah, obviously not. Far From Home. White guy. Black Widow, no. Shang-Chi, no. Eternals, no. No Way Home, yes. Doctor Strange 2, yes. So, 18 movies starring white guys. Out of what? What did we establish? 28? 18 of the movies star white guys out of 28 total. And that's not counting Avengers movies. If I throw in the Avengers, because honestly I probably should, because Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans definitely have the most screen time in those. That's 4 more. That means of the 28 movies, 22 pretty much star white guys. That's ridiculous, dude. That is absolutely fucking ridiculous. Yeah, I'm fine with a little bit more diversity than that.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness even introduced Clea, who eventually replaced Doctor Strange in the pages of the comics. The perhaps worst thing about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, though, was something that was done to another female character, namely the complete character assassination of Wanda.
WandaVision Season 2, I see what you did there.
Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is the direct continuation of WandaVision, to the point where the movie won't make anywhere near as much sense if you haven't seen WandaVision first.
I think if you just watched Infinity War and Endgame, I think it would make sense. I think you might be a little bit confused where Wanda's from. Like, obviously, if you watch it all, you get the full story. I don't think you need to watch WandaVision for Doctor Strange 2. I think it definitely helps, though.
The story is kicked off with America Chavez, a walking MacGuffin and the one individual who can travel from one universe to another within
Oh, walking MacGuffin. Sure, okay.
the multiverse, and she is being chased by monsters. Trying to help her out, Doctor Strange reaches out to Wanda for assistance, asking her how much she knows about the multiverse. Wanda first informs Doctor Strange that she is a bit annoyed with him because he broke the rules when he handed Thanos his Infinity Stone. It means nothing to her that he did this in a calculated move, knowing that was the only way to set in motion the very specific set of events which would ultimately lead to Thanos' defeat. No.
Okay. That plays into 2 things. 1, he's going through this thing where he has to figure out how to let other people take charge every once in a while. Because this is part of it. He's kind of like, he's doing this calculated thing. Good, buddy. But every once in a while, you gotta let somebody else take charge. You can't always be the one in the middle. And that's part of his arc in this movie. But number 2, you realize Wanda is kind of insane in this movie. I say kind of, and I shouldn't say kind of. She's insane in this movie. She does not have a clear perspective on right and wrong. At all. That's a huge part of this movie. She has become, in this movie, she pretty much says, hey, I've given so much, and now I'm done giving, and I'm going to just start taking. And that's part of what her story is in this movie. Did you miss that? They made that pretty clear.
No, all Wanda sees is that Doctor Strange broke the rules and was considered a hero. But when Wanda broke the rules by enslaving the inhabitants of a village, she was seen as a villain.
These are the words of Wanda, who is the villain of the movie. I hate it when these people take the words of the villain and treat it like that's the moral the movie is trying to teach. Listen, when a movie has a villain say something, a villain, what the movie is saying is that this is a wrong take. This is a wrong take. That's why they're having the villain say it and not the hero or a supporting hero or someone like that. That's how narratives work.
Wanda then confesses that she is the one who sent the monsters after America Chavez in the first place, hoping to lure her to this universe, in which she will kill her and steal her multiverse-hopping powers from her. Because that way, Wanda can travel to a universe where her imaginary kids actually exist. Because Wanda is determined to live the dream of her imaginary kids singing cutesy songs for her. And she doesn't
I don't know why the quality's so bad. Let's upgrade it.
care how many other men, women, or children have to die for it. And that includes her own multiversal counterpart, the actual mother whose kids she would kidnap. The writers can try to hide behind that the Darkhold made her do it. But that doesn't change the fact that they wrote Wanda in a way that normal, non-activist people consider to be insane, evil, and stupid. Insane, because she is so hell-bent on traversing the
They never hide the fact that she's insane. That's part of the fucking story.
multiverse for her imaginary kids in the first place. Evil, because there is no limit to the number of people she is willing to kill in
Yes, she's the fucking
order
villain.
to kidnap some kids which do not need rescuing, and that she isn't remotely capable of actually looking after. And finally, stupid. Because even though she wasted years on a romantic partner who runs on batteries, nothing prevented her from starting to date and actually make a family of her own in her native universe.
Oh my god. Yes, it's almost like when people are insane, they don't think straight. I hate hearing critiques from people who don't understand how narratives work or story structure. Jesus Christ, this is MCU stuff. This isn't like some deep, like, coded, like, secret, like, hyper, like, 10 levels writers shit. This is just fairly basic storytelling they're doing.
At least, nothing physically prevented her. Her being an Amber Heard level mental case might be an issue.
Yeah, I like how you threw that in there. Oh, Jesus Christ. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Won't stop.
The point here, though, is that the writers intended for her to be a tragic hero. Someone so scorned by society.
No, they did not intend her to be a tragic hero. They intended her to be a tragic villain. A very different thing.
That she became a villain before redeeming herself by taking out all the Darkholds of the multiverse. Except that to normal people, her actions made her completely irredeemable, and snuffing out the dark.
Okay. They actually do. There's lots of story arcs. Like I've brought this before. Her story arc in this is pretty much exactly the same as Dr. Octopus's story arc in Spider-Man 2. It's the same thing. You can have a good guy go insane, do really bad things, and then they have a redemption. However, as a general rule, that redemption requires that they sacrifice their life because that's their penance for all the shit they did. Dr. Octopus did some really bad shit, and Wanda did some really bad shit. And their penance is that they don't get to survive. They have to die to try to fix what they've done. Or at least try to set it in the right path. Largely, they can't actually completely fix what they've done. But to at least, try to rectify some of it, they have to die. That's how narratives work. Now, if she went through this story and actually didn't kill anybody, then maybe they could do, a full, actual, full-fledged redemptive thing. But, yeah, she killed people, so she died. And, yeah, you might be like, oh, she might have survived. Yeah, she might have survived. But, yeah, for the purposes of this movie, she's dead.
Darkholds, much like releasing the villagers she enslaved in WandaVision, falls into the least she could have done and she got off too lightly categories.
What did you want? She died. What else did you want? What did you think she needed to be captured and tortured? What penance is there left? She died at the end of that movie. What else do you want there to happen to her? Because there's a point where, you pull her aside and torture her? What? So, Doctor Strange tortures her and then he becomes the villain? Is that what you're looking for? Jesus. What do you want?
Also, like in WandaVision, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness wildly overpromised and underdelivered. when it came to cameos and multiverse hopping shenanigans, yet again subverting expectations in the most boring way possible.
It underdelivered. Listen, they never confirmed. I don't think they really confirmed any of the cameos except the trailers. You definitely heard Patrick Stewart's voice in the trailers. And I think you saw Captain Carter's shield. That being said, that's about all they promised as far as cameos, and they delivered on those. All the other cameos, just like the crap in WandaVision with Mephisto, these are not things that were promised. These are rumors started by fans, and then they nitpicked it, and they found little itty-bitty things and saying this is proof that so-and-so is going to be here, and then, of course, it didn't happen. Like, there was that big photo of Tom Cruise with, like, the Tony Stark-style hairdo saying, oh, he's going on set of Doctor Strange 2. And then it was revealed that photo was completely fucking doctored. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I do not criticize the MCU because fans got their expectations too high on something. Here's an idea. Instead of digging into a movie and hoping it will be what you want, go into the movie as open as possible and enjoy it or don't enjoy it, but let it succeed or fail based on its own merits, not on the merits you think it should have.
Marvel today has a producer and a writer problem, which ultimately boils down to a producer problem as the producers hire the writers. But that was never an issue before, so what is different now? Well, a couple of things. From Phase 1 to Phase 3, Kevin Feige himself served as both producer and creative lead. From Phase 4 onwards, James Gunn was supposed to help him out as creative lead, which is code for that Gunn would be doing all of the heavy lifting in a phase that was initially planned to be mostly cosmic, with some magic on the side. But then James Gunn's old tweets from his trauma days got unearthed, and Alan Horn publicly fired him on the spot. The moment that happened, the original plan and vision for Phase 4 was toast. Gunn would eventually return to direct Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3, so that wasn't too affected, but all the other movies that were supposed to tell the larger phase-spanning narrative were.
Okay, I don't recall anything about Gunn being partially in charge of Phase 4, so I would need a source on that. Do you have sources on this? I don't recall Gunn. I remember Gunn being more in charge of the cosmic stuff. Okay, more. Okay. Buy our merch, supporter. Okay, so he doesn't have any sources on this. So he just is asserting that James Gunn was absolutely supposed to be kind of the guy in charge of the cosmic side of the Marvel Universe. I don't recall anything about him being in charge of the Phase 4 of the Marvel Universe. Just the cosmic side. That's a totally different thing. So that means he'd probably be more involved with something like Eternals or Captain Marvel. I don't see him being involved with Black Widow or Shang-Chi, though. Or Black Panther. Maybe Thor. That's it. I mean, and here's the deal. Taika Waititi's actually doing a really good job with Thor movies, so hey.
That's why 6 Disney Plus series and 4 movies into Phase 4. You still can't really tell.
You know, I like how it shows, like it's trying to make out like, oh, here's production issues, because you see all these movies that keep on getting canceled and moved around. And not once has he said the word fucking COVID. Because guess what? All these plans changed with fucking COVID. There wasn't some producer shakeup. It was fucking COVID. Black Widow was supposed to be released over a year before it was released, but it got pushed around. All these pushes around were fucking COVID related.
Which of the several hinted at overarching storylines is the main connective tissue here? If it seems haphazard and disorganized, it's because it is.
This was COVID, dude.
Between all the rights they got back with the Fox acquisition and Netflix. cancelling all of their Marvel shows, amidst Feige assuming all of the defunct Marvel Entertainment Division's former responsibilities, as well as the corporate mandate to make a whole host of Disney Plus shows they weren't planning on. Feige's resources were spread too thin to chart out any more MCU faces. That's, after all, what he hired James Gunn for.
Yeah, I would like a source that he hired James Gunn for Phase 4. I heard he hired him to help with the cosmic stuff. But I heard he was largely, Feige was just going to be in charge of still largely what he's been doing up to this point, which is still largely good. Listen, the MCU is not perfect by any goddamn stretch of the word. I think as far as superhero media, it doesn't produce... It produces some really good stuff, maybe some of the best stuff, but it definitely doesn't produce the worst stuff. That's something to be said. It is definitely a corporification of something that's already largely a corporate thing, but it's like more streamlined. So like a lot of these movies feel kind of cut and dry, but they can be well done. It gets rid of a lot of the bad ones, but in turn, like a lot of the more like creative ones, like something like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, or even that recent Batman movie, they won't make it in just because they're going to be less interested in taking a risk on something like that. It is what it is, but you're also not getting something like Catwoman now, the MCU either. Miles away from it. You're getting movies much higher quality, but not the highest. You're not going to get artistic movies from the MCU. You can get pretty good. Like, I do feel like he especially recently, he's allowing the directors to be a bit more creative. Like, Sam Raimi, you can definitely tell he directed Doctor Strange 2. It has a Sam Raimi feel.
Without Gunn, then, the other producers, many of whom have an ideological bent, like Victoria Alonso, had to...
And Gunn doesn't have... Everybody has an ideology. You're saying Gunn doesn't have an ideological bent? You're saying Feige doesn't have an ideological bent? Everybody has an ideological bent. You clearly have an ideological bent. Without a doubt. And you're going to criticize other people for having one? Jesus.
To pick up the slack. The result is plainly visible on screen. This producer problem has adversely affected every single MCU project from when WandaVision kicked off Phase 4 and up until now, with Spider-Man No Way Home being the sole genuinely crowd-pleasing fluke.
Yeah, well, Doctor Strange 2 is actually doing very well in the box office. Just gonna point out that one. It's almost like these are just like lower numbers that you usually get for starting stories, which, yeah, you usually do. Usually, when you get the first part of any like series, even if it's in the MCU gives it a boost. But yeah, and not to mention the fact that Captain Marvel did do over $1 billion, and so did Black Panther, which wouldn't that destroy your whole argument?
Because it was thrown together in a hurry and a creative flurry, in a direct response to Warner and DC bringing back Keaton's Batman for The Flash, a comeback that has since been marred by star Ezra Miller himself, as we've also covered in our DC coverage. Going back to this movie, Doctor Strange is off to a strong start at the box office, but preliminary audience responses already indicate it won't come anywhere near Spider-Man No Way Home. That has got...
Oh, you expect Doctor Strange 2 to outperform a Spider-Man movie? That's an insane standard. No way in hell it goes near a Spider-Man movie. It's fucking Doctor Strange versus Spider-Man. What type of standard is that? Jesus.
To be disappointing for Marvel, because they spent a lot of money on some pretty extensive reshoots for Doctor Strange prior to releasing it.
Wait, are you going to talk about how it's a flop? Listen, there's no way in hell Marvel expected Doctor Strange 2 to pull in Spider-Man No Way Home money. They did not plan for it to bring in that much money. That being said, is it going to make its money back plus quite a bit more? Yes. Is Marvel going to be disappointed in the box office performance? They'd be stupid if they were disappointed. They certainly planned for this. They're not dumb. If nothing else, you've seen throughout their history, they understand how to plan for box office numbers.
That, of course, begs the question, what were those reshoots really about? And what was the movie like before them? we just may have.
I actually am interested what the movie was like before, because this movie actually is fairly, it's fairly well, it's fairly cohesive. Like, for a movie of reshoots, you expect there to be lots of, like, dangling plot threads and stuff, and there's really not here. It's actually really kind of a fairly tight piece. It's well put together. It's one of those things where, like, just because there's reshoots doesn't mean bad. And yeah, this was good. It's not perfect by any means, but it's good.
Have the answer to that, and we will uncover it in our next video. To make sure you don't miss out on that, please like this video, hit subscribe, and indicate you want notifications.
Okay, so, like, he didn't even bring up the MCU thing. So he's clearly just using that for clicks. But that was still a really bad review. Like, was that even a review? That's just him saying, hey, Marvel doesn't give us our exact expectations, therefore they suck. Hey, Wanda said something bad, therefore she sucks, even though she's the fucking villain. I cannot stand when people use the words of villains and be like, this is what the movie's trying to teach. No. When a villain says something in the movie, that's not something the movie's trying to teach. That's something the movie's saying is wrong. That's why they're having the villain say it and not the hero. Jesus Christ. I'm getting so annoyed with people who like to act like they understand how narratives work and how stories work and clearly have no idea. And I don't understand, like, how these people get hundreds of thousands of subscribers when they don't know how to read this shit. They don't know how to understand this shit. And this is not complex or difficult shit to understand. Most people are getting, and they're talking about how it's under. Let's pull up some numbers on Doctor Strange, because I thought it was doing all right, as overall numbers wise. Okay, so I pulled up box office. I pulled up Rotten Tomatoes, and so yeah, they're talking about how the audience is very divisive on this. So let's go ahead and look at these numbers. So what we see here is that the critics aren't, like, super thrilled with it, but they overall like it. 74% is decent. It's not great, but it's decent. But the audience is really liking it with 86%. The audience score is to be taken less seriously, in my opinion. But these guys always like to praise the audience score as if that's the only one that matters. Well, guess what? The audience really fucking likes this movie. So what does that say about your narrative? What does that say about your whole, audiences aren't liking this movie? Because guess what? They're fucking liking this movie, so you can shut the fuck up. I'm so sick of these people. They're so completely fucking full of shit.
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.
I used to fuck guys like you in prison.
I'm sorry for all the pain I caused.